Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. Friends, obviously it's summertime, and we're going to talk about what might happen if you're involved in an accident while you're on a summer trip, taking a vacation, or maybe you're just out of your local home state. Jeff Roberts, welcome back. Let's jump into this. You've got a little bit of history with personal injury.
I have a little bit of history, 28 plus years of history handling personal injury cases. How are you today, Jim?
But I'm doing fine. I love doing these podcasts with you. I love just hearing the ideas that you have out there about these cases because, I mean, again, it's not as obvious as it would seem. I mean, it's legal. It's stuff that experience really comes to play here. It matters. And the fact that you've been focused in this area for so daggone long, I mean, I learn something every episode. So yeah, I'm glad to talk to you about this.
Well, so, I appreciate it. I'm glad to find out that old dogs can learn new tricks.
So let's jump into this. Obviously, with the school being out and it's time to go take a vacation, and people are getting in the cars and they're running, whether they're running over to Myrtle Beach or they're running down to Florida on some kind of quick vacation, accidents still happen, and you may be outside of the state. Maybe you live here in Callaway County, maybe you live, in eastern Kentucky, maybe you live up in northern Kentucky. There's always a question of, am I still covered, and how does that happen, and who's going to handle the case for me? So let's jump into that.
Sure. If you are traveling, if you're a Kentucky resident, as I hope everybody listening knows, if they are a Kentucky resident, Kentucky is a mandatory insurance state, so you have to have insurance on your motor vehicle. And that insurance will travel with you as well from that standpoint. So if you're traveling through Tennessee or Alabama or Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, it doesn't matter where, if you're involved in a motor vehicle accident or collision and you have insurance on your vehicle, in Kentucky, you're still going to have insurance on your vehicle in that other state. Now, every state's laws are different. Some states may not require insurance for their drivers, and some states may have different minimums or maximum coverages that are applicable in these cases as well. So, coordinating the coverages and how the laws interact with each other is something that can be challenging to do at times, and having someone who's got experience doing that can be very beneficial. Kentucky is and we've talked about this before, it's a no-fault state, which just simply means that the vehicle you're in at the time of the collision, regardless of who's at fault in causing the collision, the insurance on that vehicle you're in is going to be responsible for a minimum of up to $10,000 of your medical and lost wage benefits. You can have additional coverage over that $10,000, but the least they can write in Kentucky is $10,000, and that's going to apply even if the accident is in Florida. And Tennessee does not have that no-fault coverage. And if somebody in Tennessee is in Kentucky and they have an accident, and their insurance, the way Kentucky law is if it's a insurance company that writes insurance in Kentucky, then they've got to provide that $10,000 of no-fault coverage in that setting for that Tennessee driver because they write coverage in Kentucky as well. But you're not going to lose coverage because you're out of state. You may actually gain a little bit potentially from that standpoint. But so you're still going to have that med pay coverage and lost wage coverage no matter where you're at when the accident occurs.
And a lot of times we call this personal injury protection, or PIP is another term that's currently thrown around. And it really refers, again, back to that no-fault coverage. It's a little bit of a safety net there to allow you to kind of get to some medical care. And it doesn't cover everything, right? I mean, there are certain things that it will cover and other things it doesn't really.
That is true. It does not cover property damage. It does not cover your pain and suffering. Primarily, what you see it for is medical bills and lost wages, but there are replacement service losses and things like that. That if something you normally would do for yourself, and now you have to hire it done because of the injuries, then it can help to cover some of those costs. One of the biggest problems with that coverage is it's 10,000. The limit was set in, I think, 77 when the law passed, 77, 78, somewhere in that time frame, and they've not adjusted it at all since then. So we're still at the 10,000. And 10,000 in medical coverage went a lot further in 1977 than it does in 2021. And the lost wage cap, unfortunately, is capped at $200 a week. So that's not even minimum wage now, but that's what it's capped at. So if you're making $1,000 a week, unfortunately, all you're going to get from that is $200 a week, which is why I strongly encourage people to have short-term disability insurance as well.
Right. And another type of insurance they may want to have is some type of uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist, because again, if you're in a state that doesn't require the drivers to have coverage, at least there is a backup plan in a policy that you're paying for, a benefit that you're paying for, that then kicks in, right?
Exactly. And in Kentucky, uninsured motorist is required coverage in Kentucky. Underinsured, though, is optional coverage. And as the term kind of define themselves, uninsured motorist kicks in when you're in an accident and the at-fault driver didn't have insurance at all. Underinsured is the at-fault driver's insurance isn't sufficient to cover your damages. And frankly, the underinsured motorist, when you look at what you're paying for that, the cost there that's some of the most affordable coverage that you can have from that perspective. So looking and making sure you have that coverage and have good coverage for underinsured and uninsured is important, especially when you're traveling, because like I said, some states do not require automobiles, on the highway to have insurance coverage. And so if you're in a state that doesn't require that, the driver that causes the accident very well may not have insurance. And so if you don't have underinsured if you don't have uninsured motorist coverage in that setting, you would still have a claim against that at-fault driver, but they also have the ability to bankrupt any claim.
Right.
So your likelihood of actually recovering any significant amount to cover the damages that you've incurred in the damage to your vehicle is not great.
Wow. Wow. So let me ask you this. Okay, so the insurance policy travels with you, but that doesn't necessarily mean if someone lives here in Kentucky and they're injured in Tennessee or Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, that a Kentucky lawyer can actually handle their case, correct? That's where it splits.
Correct. That's where you can have some problems come in. I'm licensed in Kentucky. I can handle any type of case in Kentucky courts. As I mentioned before, I'm licensed by the Social Security Administration in all 50 states, so I can handle Social Security claims outside of Kentucky. But that's truly the only type of law that I can handle, that I can legitimately represent someone in outside of the state of Kentucky. Now,
Social Security is a federal program. That's really what happens.
Exactly, it's a federal program and allows me to do that from that standpoint. So, in some states, differ on how they view settling a claim without having to file it in the court system. Some states consider even settling a personal injury claim, a car wreck claim, that's governed by, I'm just going to pick, for example, Alabama law. Alabama may view that as practicing law in Alabama, and if I'm not licensed to practice in Alabama, I cannot even settle that case. Other states say as long as you don't have to file the lawsuit, if you settle it, you're okay. But you cannot file the complaint in court, because if you file the complaint in court, then you're practicing law in that state. But
that's an interesting distinction, because once again, the vast majority of personal injury cases, motor vehicle cases, car wreck cases, actually do settle.
Correct.
Not all of them end up going to a lawsuit and going to court and trials and things like that. So there is an ongoing negotiation that you're going to have with the other side's adjusters and the insurance companies there. So there's a chance some of that can get worked out, but you're probably at that point going to have to hire a local attorney?
Yes, and what I said before about, I can't handle a case there. I can't file it myself. There are avenues where an attorney can handle a claim in another state, and it's called pro hac vice, and which is just a fancy Latin word for saying that allow the court allowing another attorney to come in and handle one case. Most states require, though, that there be an attorney licensed in that state who files the initial claim and then vouches for the attorney from the other state who's wanting to do that. And I've handled cases in Tennessee where I've been admitted to handle that specific case. From there, I've had other attorneys who've associated with me on cases here in Kentucky where, I vouched for them and we handled the claims together from that standpoint. And, what I would recommend if you're involved, if you live in Kentucky and you're involved in a state or in a car wreck, a car collision in another state, is to speak with a local attorney first for a couple of reasons for that. One, at least from my viewpoint, when you're talking about complicated legal matters, being able to sit down face to face and talk with the attorney, and the attorney being able to see your expressions and your body language, I can tell when I'm talking to a client, I can tell if I'm losing them by their body language, and then I know I need to rephrase what I'm saying or go into a little more detail.
Yeah,
explain it
differently.
differently.
Really technical and really a lot of legalese, and sometimes that isn't always understandable.
Exactly. So having somebody that you can, face to face talk with, I think is very important when you're talking about complicated legal matters. Number one. Number two, the attorney, I think I am going to be more able to track down the best attorney in the jurisdiction where that case is at to handle your claim. I know who to look for, what to look for, and how to judge whether that person is a very good attorney, mediocre attorney, or good advertiser but not very good in the courtroom. And there's a big difference on what your recovery is going to be on whichever one of those that you obtain. From that standpoint, so having an attorney that's going to look out to that other jurisdiction, and then whenever attorneys associate on these cases, we associate in a way that it does not increase the cost to the client. So whether you have me as your attorney, and then I associate with an attorney in Alabama that I know is very good, and we work together. Me working, taking the doctor's depositions here and working that angle, and they working the legal side of it down there. And then we split the fee based on the amount of work each of us has done on the case. From that, you're getting, but the fee's going to be the same. If I handled the entire case, it would be the same fee as if you had two attorneys and we're splitting the fee from that standpoint. But you have somebody local you can talk to, and then you've got somebody in that jurisdiction as well. And I think it's the same vice versa. If we have people traveling, people come up to Kentucky all the time. Land Between the Lakes here where I'm at is a wonderful resource that we have here. Beautiful
vacation spot. Vacation spot.
Beautiful countryside. Kentucky Lake, Barkley Lakes, some of the prettiest lakes and prettiest country in the state, in all over that I've been to. And I haven't been out west or anything personally, but it's one of my favorite places to be. And I frequently have attorneys, people up here who get injured in wrecks, and I've associated with attorneys in Texas, in Georgia, in Florida, who had basically the same that I've done with other attorneys, and that's where the person got here that lived in Texas, got injured up here in Kentucky. It was a Kentucky case. They did their due diligence in finding the attorney they thought was going to be really good to represent their clients, and contacted me, and we do the same thing from that standpoint. You got to
love it when the SEC comes to the OVC for guidance. I love it. No, but that's an option. And again, one of the things in the law that I've always found interesting is, while yes, there may be a law in Kentucky about something. Laws change based on the state, unless we're in a federal matter. But laws can be different, and the procedure can be different. So if you were to go to Alabama and to try to practice, there's a chance there could be a nuance or a process or something that you're not as up to speed on as a local attorney, and that could also be harmful to the case if you miss something.
Absolutely, it can be fatal to the case
Yeah.
if you miss something.
I was trying to give you some wiggle room.
Yeah. The statute of limitations in cases vary from state to state. And the statute of limitations is a law that says the claim has to be filed in court within a certain time frame, or you may be forever barred for pursuing that. Kentucky statute of limitations for a car wreck is 2 years from the date of the accident or last payment of the PIP benefits. From there, Tennessee, the last I looked, and I haven't looked in a while, but the last I looked, Tennessee was 1 year statute of limitations. So somebody,
Wow, that's a huge. I mean, that's 50% of the time.
yeah, exactly.
Half the
So
time.
yeah, so an attorney in Kentucky who's not aware of that difference in the statute of limitations, whenever I get a case in, one of the first things we do when we open up a case is we log in our computer system in multiple different locations what the statute of limitations is, with several warning ticklers ahead of time to make sure we have everything resolved or filed within that time frame. And hopefully all attorneys do something similar to that. But if you've got, if it's Tennessee case, and they don't know that it's a 1 year statute of limitations, and they log it as 2 year statute of limitations, you've got major problems potentially there. And the client's the one who pays, or the attorney's malpractice carrier, the one who takes care of that in that situation. But nobody wants either one of those things to occur. So.
Right. And that's just dangerous stuff. But that's one of the things that I think surprises people is that, yeah, you do have to get a local attorney, and it's okay to get that advice, because again, they may have a better handle on kind of what's going on in the local courts,
right,
and how to get that done a little bit
well
more effectively.
Exactly. And I've known of attorneys to settle cases in other states. In earlier on in my career, I did the same thing. I've settled cases that were Tennessee cases at times in my career when it was local folks that were injured. And, I'm to the point now, after experiencing this like I have, and seeing it vice versa when people settle Kentucky cases that aren't Kentucky attorneys, I don't think you do your client justice when you do that, because there are nuances. In what a Callaway County jury or a Graves County or McCracken County or Trigg County values a case at is going to be vastly different than what a Mobile, Alabama jury values that case. And so if I'm valuing it based on where I practice at, and I keep up with actually jury verdicts all throughout, civil jury verdicts throughout the state of Kentucky. I subscribe to a publication to keep me up to date on what's going on in the jury system all over the state of Kentucky. But I don't keep up with what's going on with jury verdicts in Alabama, because I don't practice in Alabama. And so having someone there, I think that that jurisdiction, they may have a much higher value or a much lower value than what we have locally. In an attorney who's not familiar with that, if they got a lower value, I may be trying to hold out for more money than we should, and then my client ends up, we have to file suit, take depositions, and end up costing my client more money because the expenses go up in the case,
and the time frame goes longer.
And the time frame goes longer. Or if you have an attorney who thinks it's a lower value than what it is, then they settle the claim for less money than what they should have settled the claim for. And the insurance companies know that, and they know who will. If I'm handling a claim in Alabama, they know I can't file that lawsuit in Alabama. It doesn't take long for them to look at Alabama's Bar Association, who has a list of all the attorneys licensed in Alabama, and see that Jeff Roberts in Murray, Kentucky is not licensed in Alabama. So they know that, the closer they get to that statute of limitations, first off, I may not know what that statute of limitations is. I'm going to, if it's me, I'm going to find out if I'm going to handle the case, because I'm getting somebody in Alabama to work with me on it. But if you've got an attorney who's not doing that, they're going to say, let's see if he knows what the statute of limitations
Roll the
is.
dice a little bit.
Or as we get closer to it, offer 50 cents on the dollar and see if he takes it, because we know he's got to contact an attorney down here to file this, or he's out of luck and his client's out of luck, or her client's out of luck, depending on the case may be. So I think making sure you have an attorney who's going to be doing all of that, and attorneys who are doing that, making sure if you're a Kentucky resident injured somewhere else, like I said at the start, talk to a Kentucky attorney. But if you go to a Kentucky attorney and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm not licensed in Alabama, but I can settle that case for you," talk to a different Kentucky attorney.
Right. Just to be absolutely sure.
Yeah, because you want right off the bat getting both involved, and then even if I'm going to be the one trying to settle the case, my correspondence to the insurance company, I represent this person. I'm associated with so and so in Alabama. We both represent them in this claim, but I'm doing the primary work on it now, so correspond with me, but they know going in, okay, he's already dotted his I's, crossed his T's. If we got to file suit, he's already got that set up. He's going to know what Kentucky law is or Alabama law is, because he's already talked to and has an Alabama attorney he can talk to, and I'm going to do the better job for my client in that setting, and that's always my goal.
And once again, just to clarify, this is not specifically geared toward Alabama. We're using Alabama as an example state. This could apply to South Carolina or Texas or Wyoming or wherever, but we're just kind of using Alabama as an example here.
And I'm using that as an example because that's the most recent one that I've had that experience with.
Absolutely. So again, if somebody is from out of state and they come into Kentucky and they're involved in an accident, even though they're not in Callaway County, they're not down here in Western Kentucky, you actually can take a look at that case and may be able to handle that case for them, correct? I mean, as a licensed attorney in Kentucky, you can practice throughout the Commonwealth.
Absolutely. And I've handled claims all over the state of Kentucky. I've handled cases that were venued in northern Kentucky, in Covington area, Louisville, and Lexington, Paducah. I'm in Paducah. Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah, anything from Hawkinsville west, those courts I'm in on a regular basis. I'm handling cases from those counties on a regular basis. So when I don't handle cases in Pikeville on a regular basis. Have I had clients that lived over in that area? Absolutely. And can I take a case over in that area? Yes. And I do at times take those cases. If I think my client's going to be, the person contacting me is better off with a local attorney, I'll let them know that. And so it's just, it varies situation to situation. And, a local person who had an injury in Bowling Green may want a local attorney to handle that case, and that's certainly fine. Or if you're in Bowling Green and we're injured in Bowling Green and you want me because you've looked at the reviews and what past clients have said about me and what other attorneys have said about me, and you want me to handle your case, call me up and we'll discuss the case, and if I can help you out, I will.
Well, and that's one thing. We just did some updates to the website and some other online properties here, and if you're just kind of catching this podcast, you're not following this podcast frequently, Jeff's taking cases all the way to the Kentucky Supreme Court. So when he's talking about being able to not only handle it throughout the Commonwealth, also to take it to the highest court in the state. I mean, that's an area that you're again happen to be familiar with.
I've been in the Supreme Court multiple times on cases, and I think I have a pretty good track record there. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jeff, any other parting thoughts here as we kind of wrap up the episode as far as, again, people going on vacation? Obviously, we want people to pay attention to the roadways, be alert, kind of be sober when they're on the roads, obviously.
Absolutely.
And just kind of increase that following distance. That's a big issue. I know we've done numerous podcasts and blog posts about the following distance with all these trucks that are out there constantly. It's easy to get distracted.
It is easy to get distracted, especially when you're traveling on roads you're not real familiar with. Because, I mean, then I've traveled the West Kentucky Parkway so many times, I know what's coming up, and there's really nothing to see off the West Kentucky Parkway anyway. But then when you start traveling through areas you never traveled, And you kind of start, well, ooh, look at that. That's real pretty over there. And you're seeing things you hadn't seen and may not be paying as much of attention. And you need to make sure you focus on paying the attention that you should be paying. And when you're driving down the road, when you pass, get back into the slow lane or the right-hand lane. But maintain that proper distance and don't cut back over in front of somebody from that standpoint. If you're going to a place that's got a beach or a really fun place to go, stop by and pick me up on your trip. I hope a lot of people are able to get out and take a vacation after the last year that we've had, last year and a half we've had with the pandemic going on, and I'm glad to see things are opening back up at this point in time. And frankly, I think a lot of folks mentally need to get away, and have a little fun. And I hope everybody listening gets a chance to do that, and they get to a nice place and have the type of fun, good, safe fun wherever they go to.
No, and Jeff, I always appreciate the words of advice that you provide on this and the guidance, based on your years of experience. And if you are getting ready to take a vacation here, and you are getting ready to get behind the wheel and take a long interstate trip in particular, we do have a previous episode that we've talked about safe driving tips in and around heavy truck traffic on the roads. It might be worth giving it a listen to. Just, we all, some of the times you're driving, it's just muscle memory. You've done it so much you don't think about it. But every once in a while, it's good to kind of knock off the cobwebs and remind yourself of a few things as you get out there, because there's going to be a lot of distractions, things to see, like you said. There's going to be things to do and see inside the car that may take your eyes off the road, and it doesn't take long to have a tragic ending to a wonderful vacation.
Unfortunately, tragedy can strike in a split second, and so paying close attention. Put your phone down and don't be looking at your phone. Don't be texting while you're driving. Hopefully, if you're on vacation, you've got somebody, a family member or friend with you that can take care of all of that. If you're the one driving, let somebody else take care of all of that stuff, and pay attention to the road ahead of you, and just be safe.
Good deal. Jeff, I appreciate your time again. Thanks very much. And for everybody that's getting ready to get out there on the roadways, drive safely and make it home safely as well. Enjoy yourselves. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.